Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, my students? I hope that you're happy and healthy and ready for today's lesson, which is enrichments, of course. So today we'll be taking the reading from the curriculum, of course. Today's objectives: list replacement for daily electric items, explain wind energy, find meaning for new words in the text, compare life with and without green power. So if you remember, the theme of this unit is to go green. So the reading here, there's a question here. Have you ever had the experience of living without things like electricity and running water for even a short period of time? What did you do? How did you adapt? Have you ever had the experience to live without electricity or running water, whether from a tap or a water that is easily accessible to you? Maybe we have experienced this briefly when we go camping outside our cities. There's no electricity and there's no running water available there. So maybe just briefly, but to live it for a long period of time, for days or months, years, I don't think so. What did you do? How did you adapt? So you will be answering this according to your own experience. Have your parents or grandparents told you about their experiences? Of course, maybe your parents or grandparents have experienced this as a lifestyle, to live without electricity or without running water. Have they told you about their experiences? If they didn't, then try to ask them, how did you live without running water or electricity? So living off the grid. Living off the grid, of course, you can see here the wind farm, the solar power panels, and also here the fresh tomatoes. So we'll be talking about all of them in our article today. So of course, the wind farm and solar panel are methods or ways to get clean energy, to get electricity using either the sunlight, solar power, or the wind power, as we call it here, the wind farm. So what do you think the grid is? What does it mean to live off the grid? Of course, we'll be learning about that in our article today. Before reading question, read the passage and underline ways that your country can replace utilities such as electricity, natural gas, and water from the local supply systems. So underline the ways that your country can replace utilities, for example, electricity. How our country is going to replace electricity or natural gas and water from the local supply systems. So this is the article here, living off the grid. Let's listen to it, and we'll be answering some questions regarding the article. Let's listen.
Imagine heating your home without relying on the local power plant. Wouldn't it feel good to meet your need for electricity without harming the environment? For a growing number of people, these ideas have become reality. Out of concern for the environment and a desire for self-reliance, these people have made the bold decision to live off the grid. What exactly is the grid? The grid, short for the power grid, is the linked system that supplies electricity to most homes and buildings in developed nations. Homes that are off the grid are not hooked up to the local power supply. Instead, they produce all of the energy they consume. As a result, people living off the grid avoid the environmental and financial costs that come with on-grid living.
So now that we have listened to the first and the second paragraph, here we have a question. What do you think the grid is? What does it mean to live off the grid? Of course, this question was answered in the second part of the paragraph here. What do you think the grid is? This is the answer here. What the grid? The grid is short for the power grid. What is the power grid? It is the linked system that supplies electricity to most homes and buildings in developing nations. So the grid is the linked system. It's a system that is linked to provide electricity and water to buildings, houses, and so on. What does it mean to live off the grid? To live off the grid, to live without the supplier of the electricity and the running water. So this is what it means to live off the grid. It means that you depend on yourself to supply the electricity and water. So homes that are off the grid are not hooked up. They are not hooked up to the local power supply. Instead, what do? They produce all of the energy they consume. So all of the energy that they consume, they provide for themselves. Of course, through maybe solar panels on the roofs and so on. So continuing with the article here.
The key to getting off the grid is replacing electricity supplied by a power plant with a renewable energy source, like wind or solar power. Buildings that use solar power have solar panels on the roof or near the building. When the sun's light hits the panels collect the energy. Wind power is collected by turbines, also known as windmills. When the wind blows, the blades move, producing energy which is turned into electricity by a generator. Some people go even further off the grid. In addition to setting up a renewable energy source, they also have an independent source of water. They dig wells to access groundwater or use a cistern, a type of tank, to collect rainwater. Those most committed to living off the grid may even lack garbage service. These people generally live a life that creates very little waste, growing their own organic fruits and vegetables, and raising chickens and goats for eggs and milk. By avoiding the consumption of packaged foods, they greatly reduce paper and plastic waste.
So the first paragraph here is talking how to replace the grid by using, as I said before, solar panels or wind power using the wind farm. The other paragraph is people who are even further in the grid, not only replacing power but also replacing water, try to provide water for themselves. Let's continue with the article here.
As challenging as it may be to live off the grid, most off-gridders feel that the benefits far outweigh the difficulties. Jorge and Ella Alvarez, off-gridders in northern Arizona, say, "We love being off-grid. It's definitely hard work, but it puts everything in life into perspective. It's surprising to find just how much you can do without. Many people think we have a harsh and depressing lifestyle. Nothing could be further from the truth. We see living off the grid as a gift that has allowed us to be more in touch with nature and each other." This view is shared by Wendy Johnston, a mother of 3, living off the grid with her family in Ontario, Canada. Wendy recalls, "In the house I grew up in, we would leave lights on all day, the thermostat up at night, and water running without a second thought. I wanted my children to be raised with more respect for the environment and an awareness of the impact that they have on it. My children don't take energy for granted. I love the fact that they are learning how to take care of the earth while, at the same time, learning to be self-sufficient." Wendy admits that living off the grid has its difficulties. For example, the Johnstons' power usually goes down a few times a year. However, Wendy reflects, "The funny thing is that these often turn out to be some of our best times as a family. The power outages have an unexpected way of bringing us closer together. We read books and play games by candlelight, or we get together and tell stories." Living off the grid entails sacrifices, and is certainly not for everyone. But for the thousands of people who have made this bold choice, life off the grid is filled with rewards that can't be matched by the conveniences and luxuries of life on the grid.
So now that we have listened to the article, let's learn some reading strategy here. To understanding long sentences. Long sentences can sometimes be challenging to a reader. Find the sentences in the article and answer questions about them whenever possible. So sometimes long sentences can be hard for some readers to understand. Let's take some exercises. Find these sentences in the article and answer questions about them whenever possible. In paragraph 1, can you tell where's the long sentence here? Yes, it's this one. Out of concern of the environment and the desire for self-reliance, these people have made the bold decision to live off the grid. So we have some questions here about this long sentence. Who are these people? So who are these people? Yes, the growing number of people who aren't relying on the local power plant. Very good. What are two reasons they have decided to live off the grid? So they have two reasons here. What are they? Yes, they care about the environment and want to be more independent and self-reliant. Of course, this is in paragraph 1. In paragraph 3, so where's the long sentence here in paragraph 3? Yes, very good. When the wind blows, the blades move, producing energy which is turned into electricity by a generator. So what are the blades? We say here the blades move. What are the blades? Yes, the blades are the part of the windmill that moves. The part of the windmill that moves. These we call the blades. How does a windmill produce electricity? The answer is in the long sentence here. It's easy. The blades turn when the wind blows. This produces energy. Then a generator makes the electricity. So how does a windmill produce electricity? You can say using a generator. Using a generator. Or if you want the full answer, when the blades turn, the blades turn when the wind blows. This produces energy. Then a generator makes the electricity. In paragraph 5, where's the long sentence here? The long sentence here. Very good. I wanted my children to be raised with more respect for the environment and an awareness of the impact that they have on it. So we have a couple of questions here. Who does the pronoun they refer to? The pronoun they refers to who? Let's see the answer. Wendy Johnston's children. It refers to her children. Number 2, what are 2 things Wendy wants for her children? She wants 2 things. Let's see the answer here. She wants them to care for the environment and to know that things they do have an effect on it. She wants them to care for the environment and to let them know that what they do have an effect on the environment. Paragraph 7, where's the long sentence here? Yes, it's the whole paragraph almost. But for the thousands of people who have made this bold choice, life off the grid is filled with rewards that can't be matched by the conveniences and luxuries of life on the grid. So the first question, what is the bold choice referred to? What is the bold choice here? The courageous choice. What's the bold choice here? Yes, the decision to live off the grid. Of course, it's very bold. Number 2, what does the expression can't be matched mean? The expression can't be matched. What does it mean? So let's see the answer here. It means that one thing is much better than another. In this case, the rewards of life off the grid are much better than the good things about life on the grid. So continuing here the vocabulary practice, let's discuss the words with the prefix self. Of course, when you say self, of course, here you're talking about yourself. Find these expressions in the article and explain what they mean. Self-reliance, self-sufficient, of course, remember them from the article. Doing things without help from other people. This is self-reliance, to rely on yourself, to depend on yourself. So, doing things without help from other people. What about self-sufficient here? So it means producing or making everything you need without help from others. So both of them without help from others. You rely on yourself. So self means you. Self means a person's own nature or characteristics. It is also used in the reflexive pronouns myself, yourself, etc. So what other words you know that starts with self? Can you give me some examples of words that begins with self here? Let's see some examples here. Self-esteem, self-taught, self-defense, and self-control. So all of these are examples of terms that begin with the word self. So the after reading questions, what are some public utilities that most of us rely upon? Define the grid. How does the wind energy work? Of course, the first one, answer electricity, natural gas, and water. What are some public utilities that most of us rely upon? Of course, we rely on electricity, natural gas, and water. Define the grid. If you remember, the definition of the grid is in the second paragraph. Yes, that's correct. The linked system that supplies electricity to most homes and buildings in developed nations. How does wind energy work? How does wind energy work? If you remember it from the article. Let's see the answer here. When the wind blows, windmills turn, producing energy which is turned into electricity by a generator. Very good. Number 4, what are some reasons people choose to live off the grid? Some of the reasons that people choose to live off the grid. What are their reasons? So let's see the answer here. Concern for the environment and the desire of self-reliance. Concern for the environment and desire for self-reliance. Number 5, what are 2 alternatives to using a public water utility? So what are 2 alternatives to using a public water utility? So give 2 alternatives from the article, of course. So the answer is a private well that you have maybe in your farm, or a cistern to collect rain water. How could someone reduce his or her waste? How could someone reduce his or her waste? Of course, this is also from the article. So the answer is by growing their own fruits and vegetables and raising and tending animals for food. So to reduce your waste by growing vegetables in your house because of the packaging of buying food from grocery stores, of course. And with that, we reach the end of this lesson. See you next lesson, inshallah. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum.